Hello. All right. Um, Welcome to the Work from Home Book Club, episode two, Station 11. 2 weeks ago, we did George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia. And I think in a couple weeks, I'm going to do I, Claudius by Robert Graves. But today, we're doing Station 11 by uh, Emily St. John. So doing Station 11 and put a little bit more prep in this time. I'm a little bit more ready to do this. But yeah, if you have comments or questions, like definitely throw them in. And thank you for joining today. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I know it's been um, we're still working from home. So yeah. So Station 11. So I'm gonna do five basic uh, like segments here. First, we'll do a little quick summary of the plot because one of the most time-honored traditions is being a part of a book club and not reading a book. So some of you out there may not have read it. We'll go through what I think are the most quotable moments from the book, the scenes and themes that I think are going to stick to me. We'll talk about whether or not this can be converted into a like a movie or a Netflix show, and then talk about some of the characters and then do some nitpicking. So let's get it. So um, the Station 11 is the story of a deadly flu that starts in like maybe the mountain regions of Europe somewhere. Like they call it the Georgian flu, and then wipes out all of civilization. And the story is about the people that kind of lived through that, told from the network of people that know this famous actor named Arthur Leander, and a comic book called Station 11 that I think his first wife wrote. Um, so that's kind of the setup, and it goes in and out from the perspectives of mostly five different people, both during actually during and before the flu, and then after. So quick spoiler alert. What I'm going to do next is might spoil the book. If that bothers you, maybe put it on mute. We'll keep the glass here. I'll move that back out once we are out of the spoiler section. But so the book opens when this flu lands in Toronto, and it happens to be the same night that Arthur, while acting in a play, dies from a heart attack. And Javon, one of the other book's main characters, tries to save him. He fails, and a young girl, Kristen, is watching. So these end up being kind of the main characters that take up the book. Arthur, the actor, I kind of picture him as like a Brad Pitt type. Javon, who was studying to be an EMT. Kristen, the little girl who ends up growing up, and you see a lot of her life after the plague. And then some people that are connected to Arthur. So his first wife, Miranda, his second wife, Elizabeth, his son, Travis, and his best friend, Clark. And so what happens after, kind of in the after the plague situation, you're following Kristen with a company called a company of actors, like a troupe of actors called the Traveling Symphony, whose motto is survival is insufficient. And they're really trying to help people connect back to the cultural memory before the collapse. Yeah. So the major themes of the book, what makes life worth living, both in the midst of civilization and after its collapse, humans trying not to lose their grip on society and what it actually means to be remembered. And then obviously, like, I picked this book up because we're in the middle of this like global pandemic, and so there's a little bit of that. The same reason that the movie Contagion is getting watched right now. Okay, spoiler alerts are over. We'll move the glass back out so if you cared, if you want to read this for the first time yourself. Most quotable moments from the book. Like, what are you most likely to put on your Goodreads profile? I'm stealing a little bit here from the Ringers Rewatchables podcast series. The first is survival is insufficient, which I think is also stolen from Star Trek. At least they say it is in the book. um, over and over again, the traveling symphony kind of, when they run into hard things about, post-pandemic life, uh, the motto "survival is insufficient" comes up. Uh, the second is about it's actually about the pre-pandemic world. But anyway, I look around sometimes and I think this will maybe sound weird. It's like the corporate world is full of ghosts. And actually, let me revise that. My parents are in academia, so I've had a front row. So I've had front row seats for that horror show. I know academia is no different. So maybe a fair way of putting it would be to say that the adult world's full of ghosts. And this is about a woman who's trying to talk about before the collapse, what makes life worth living. And then the third one that I think is super quotable here is um, referencing Arthur's son Travis, who becomes kind of like a traveling prophet who uses his kind of grip over people for evil. And so they're referencing him as saying, if you are the light, if your enemies are darkness, then there's nothing that you cannot justify. There's nothing you cannot survive, and there's nothing that you will not do. Yeah. So the scenes that will stick with me the most. The first is Miranda, who is the author of the comic Station 11, and Arthur's first wife is staring out at. She actually is working for a shipping company called like Neptune Logistics, and she's in Malaysia when the flu hits, and she ends up dying on a beach while looking out at all of these ships that are in the harbor but that are lit up so that other ships don't run into them. And there's just something surreal about that scene, and it's really well written, and you can kind of feel her laying in the sun just to be warm as the flu takes her. The second is actually from Javon's perspective. So Javon happens to have a friend who's a doctor who gives him the heads up that this flu is killing tons of people. And so he makes it to a grocery store, buys, as many supplies as he can get, and then gets to his brother's high rise overlooking the city of Toronto. And he just kind of stares out and looks, watches the city fall into chaos, watches the electricity go out, has some people kind of try to break in, but they can't get past the deadbolt, sees, fires break out in some areas, gunshots break out in other areas. And then the snow fall on top of it, which is, I thought, really beautiful. And then the last one is Miranda and Arthur are both from a really small island off the coast of Vancouver, and they really bond over what it's like to be from somewhere that is so small and out of the way that no one can relate to it. And this stood out to me. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And there is a sense in which, you can tell when you're telling people about where you're from that they just can't relate to it. So I appreciated that. All right. Could this be a movie or a TV show? I actually don't think that it could. And the reason is this book is really unique and complex. And I mean that in a really good way. It's, really good TV shows in some ways have a simple thing that drives the plot. Like you think of like Game of Thrones, and it's like, okay, the who actually killed or tried to kill Brandon, and winter is coming. Like that's everything kind of boils down to that. And this book is so much more complicated. Like the Arthur has these different wives, and before and after, and Miranda writes this comic book. It's not a popular comic book. It's not widely published, but she cares about it and publishes it for herself. And all of these things are not necessarily like plot drivers in the sense of if character A doesn't get the thing to character B, then character C will die. It's more kind of like telling you about who these people are, and up to you to kind of like piece together what these different vignettes mean. And I just don't think that would convert. I don't think you'd be. I think a producer would be sitting there and be like, you can't make this into a show. And then it's named after a comic book that like is sort of it's interesting in how to get past it, right? It's just it tells you about the characters. So don't think it could be a show. Sorry, Emily St. John Mandel. It's good for your book, bad for your income. Okay. I've been positive. Now I'm going to be a little bit negative. Arthur, the main actor, like this guy seems like a total jerk. Like, what is up with this dude? No one really likes this guy. 3 wives, all ex-wives. None of them like him. His best friend doesn't like him, and his child doesn't like him. So, what? I don't know. I kind of imagined him as the Brad Pitt character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but like a less likable version. He's supposed to be super successful. I don't know. And then his first wife, Miranda, I really, really, really liked her from the beginning of of the story. And then she turns into this. She goes from a like student who's really interested in like art and comics and kind of building her world not in a pretentious way, in like a way that was really enjoyable. And she becomes like a shipping executive, and who's like the female character at the beginning of a rom-com who's like high powered but no feelings, and really insular. And I just thought, what a waste of a really interesting character and person, I guess. So well done, because I cared for this character enough to be bad about how their life turned out. Yeah, and then some nitpicks. Okay, the actual mechanics of this flu. So from the book, now maybe this isn't true, but the book seems to suggest that 99% of the people who get the flu die, and that most of them die within hours. And I just want to point out that if this was the case, it would never have made it from wherever it started in the mountains of Georgia to Toronto. Like, it just never would have made it. The flight is long enough that everyone would be dead by the time the plane landed. So, bad job there. And then this got me thinking, like, and this is actually serious, and I don't know anything about this, but can a disease actually like knock out human civilization? And I'm going to go out there. So the Black Plague, 50 to 75% mortality rates. So we're talking about half to 3/4 of the people in a given area are dying from it. And yet you still continue to have government and art and civilization. It's hard to imagine like a disease with a higher death rate spreading far enough, to, once you get to 80, 90%, it kind of burns itself out in a particular area. And so if the Black Death didn't knock out human civilization, I don't think a disease can. So that's good for civilization, not good for maybe for right now, because 50 to 75% of people is a lot. Which brings me to my second nitpick, which is, okay, you have a plague that kills 99% of the people in the world, and Javon, Elizabeth, Travis, his son, Clark, his best friend, and Kristen, who is in a play with him, all make it into the post-civilization world. I'm calling BS on this. Like, there's no way that um, uh, 5 people connected to this one guy and intimately connected to different parts of his life make it in that case. So anyway, that's all I got. Any questions from the live audience that did you read Station 11? All right. Well, if there are no questions from the live audience, then that's all I got. Thanks so much for joining me this week, and I'll be back in probably 2 weeks with I Claudius, which is it's a fictional historical fiction about the Emperor Claudius and his life. I'm about halfway through it right now. If you got another book that you'd like to see me do, leave it in the comments. I know, Oscar, you want 100 Days of Solitude. I gotta be excited enough to close this book, and I'm not sure that I am. So anyway, change my mind for sure. I'm sure I'm wrong. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. See you guys. Be safe.